I want to make a game. I've wanted to make a computer game for a long time. I did make small attempts in the past, but usually I got stuck at a working prototype because of the art. It kept bringing my motivation down, because I wanted to do it on my own in order to have a unique style. Well, I kind of dropped the unique visuals for now. I'm a software engineer, and as an engineer, you can imagine I do not have any drawing or modeling skills at all. But coding is right in my comfort area. There are a few jewels out there that can probably do art and code, but I'm just not one of them. I'm 30 years old and I have a partner, two lovely kids, and we live in Slovenia, country which shape resembles a chicken. I've been developing apps for the past 8 years, and while my job can be challenging and fun, in the evenings I still find myself playing around various prototypes. Not having art skills was a pain for a while, until I faced the fact that if I wanted to focus more on coding, the part that I really love, I will need to find assets on the store or pay someone to make them so that my scenes do not feel so empty and that I can focus on the code and the game functionality. I can always improve models later. But in some cases, I just wanted to make my scenes filled with other than code and just simple 3D objects. To give a feeling like you've actually done something. But I have to admit that sometimes, or rather just most of the time, the challenges that I face with games are really hard to deal with when you have no background in game development. So in the past few years, I've been trying to learn as much as possible by creating small packages that I can integrate in my games, like camera controller, unit production, resource management, building placement, inventory system, crafting system, and the list goes on. This is one of the prototypes that ended up using camera controller, crafting, and inventory system. I made a few other small prototypes, primarily for learning, but I also managed to publish 3 assets on the store that are of course pure code. While these projects gave me a lot of knowledge on how to structure code in Unity, I failed to utilize Unity's store properly and reinvent things like inventory system. You can find more than one on the store, even free ones. At least download a free version and see what you can learn from it. Trust me, you will spend less time making mistakes that could have been avoided. Now I want to make a game that kind of resembles Mount & Blade, but primarily in combat. You are spawned on a map with a few loyal soldiers and have to set up a camp, collect resources, recruit new units, defend camp, and conquer the land around you. Camp can be moved for strategic purposes. To make things simple at the start, I used few of my own packages, like unit production system that takes care of my resources, units, their costs, requirements, research, and more. This package was done with real-time strategy intent, but surprisingly came very useful in this game. But I also used some other assets for 3D models that can be found on Unity Asset Store. At the beginning, the combat was very undefined, and I wanted to see what kind of challenges I would be facing when controlling units. For a start, I just added a few basic attack animations, with some collision detection and weird-looking spear throw. For movement of AIs, I mostly use built-in AI navigation system, and when they are close to targets, I move them manually to avoid calculating path for a few meters. So combat was not really interesting, but the commanding units was really fun, and seeing them face each other in combat was really fun too. After having commandable units, I started on a large map that could have given me an idea on how the environment would look and to see how my units in action would look. I'm not very good at creating environments, so I tried to create a simple scene to the best of my abilities. It took me at least a week. I tried to have more than 50 units, but quickly figured out that more optimization will be required for this to work smoothly on a larger scale. Hopefully I will be up to the task. And though I did quite a bit of research on this and already tried a few things that improved the FPS, I still welcome any suggestions. After finishing it, I spent hours, if not days, running around, testing and killing random spawned bandits. But the scene needed optimizing. It barely ran 60 FPS with 50 men. Lesson learned: real-time animations are expensive, especially humanoid ones with inverse kinematics. And of course, the environment isn't cheap too. After creating the map, I wanted to add a village that you can take over with force, as this would be the primary goal of the game. I spent a week or so on a camp construction, and to speed things up, I used my own production package for producing units, structures, and for population and resource management. I also implemented a simple placement system, where player places structures on the ground and his units then build them. If player has resources, of course. Otherwise, he has to send his workers to collect wood. After this, I really wanted to go back to combat. Final combat that I had in mind is more like Mountain Blade or Mord Howl, but the approach with directional attacks based on mouse movement. I continued to work on combat, made 2 iterations, and finally came to a more interesting, fun combat with directional attacks and blocks. Now I can equip different weapons. Weapons length and weight influences the speed of attack swing. I had 4 directions for attacking and blocking: left, top, right, and front. While blocking, you can stun with the shield. If no shield is equipped, you can hit with your hand or kick with your foot. I couldn't help myself and spent another few weeks testing out different approaches for first person, because I wanted more immersive feeling when fighting one-on-one, or building a camp and walking into a tent. At some point, I also added network support for players' characters. I tried to include the units of the player, and that is when things got a little bit more complicated and did not want to spend another month on this. So I commented out network layer, and I will revisit this once I decide if units will be present in the multiplayer at all. I will polish combat before making that happen again. But I do believe multiplayer support is good for co-op, or even capture the flag could be fun, with or without commanding units. But more about that in the next video. I appreciate you for taking the time to watch it till the end. If you wish to express support, like the video or maybe even subscribe for updates. If you're interested in the final product, the link for the Steam wishlist is in the description. Join me on the Discord channel.